Hello there once again, YouTubers. Today we have something that's really extraordinary. This is a very rare player. This is a Webster Chicago player. What makes this unusual is that this is designed to play 7-inch 33s and 7-inch 45 RPM records. And I'm going to break this up into two videos because we want to give you a little history on this. This, along with two other models, were made by Webster Chicago. Webster Chicago made a 760-1 and a 762, which were both complete units. By that I mean it had this particular type mechanism in it, and it had its own amplifier system in it. And they were basically tabletop models. This was an attachment. This, of course, is the rarest of them all. For lots of good reasons. First of all, in 1951, how many 7-inch 33s were really out there? Not a whole lot, I guarantee you. And Webster Chicago was in the business of making 45 adapters, such as that right there that you see on this record. And what better way to introduce their product than with something like this? These were designed so that there was no 45 adapter on this spindle. It would either hold the 45 like this, or the 7-inch 33, which would also fit there. The problem is, once again, in 1951, how many 7-inch 33s were really out there? I assure you, not very many. And it's unique in so many different ways. First of all, when we look at the mechanism on this, and this mechanism is very complicated and over-engineered. There's no two ways about it. It must have been very expensive to manufacture, and it must have been very expensive to buy. And the Achilles heel was this piece of rubber right here. These tripods, the records, first of all, would sit on the tripod. When it went into the reject mode, the tripod would fit into the spindle, and this little piece of rubber, which is very difficult for you to see here, would expand and hold the rest of the records back. You can get a better idea by looking at 45player. That's a YouTube channel, 45player. Chris Cuff, he did the restoration for me, the internal mechanism restoration. And he does a much better job of explaining all of this. This was one I didn't want to tackle. This was just a little bit beyond the kind of work that I wanted to get into. It shares some of the similarities to an RP168 in that it has on the underside of the turntable the same cam system that the RP168 would have, with some variation on the theme. If we look at the controls, this was the reject button right here. And along the side here is neutral in the center, 33 when you push it up, and 45 when you push it down. So you could play either one or the other, and it would move it to the proper speed. If we take it across the back, and this is important to show you too, and there's a little tag for the Webster, you'll notice that the cord coming out of it has an RCA jack and an RCA plug. And that's because down here you could set it for 7-inch, which would be this right here, or 10 to 12-inch, which would be your other record player plugged into the jack over here. So it was designed so that you would use it in conjunction with another turntable that would play the 78s, obviously. And I can't tell you really how rare this thing is. It's tough enough to find any of the Webster Chicago players, but you have to understand that how many people would have bought an attachment like this? I can assure you, not too very many. Worse yet, because of the complications of the mechanism, this rubber after a period would basically dry up, dry rotted, and I'm sure they would have taken it to the repair shop, in which case the repairman probably shook his head and said, "You got to be shitting me," because of the amount of work that's required to get into this thing and work on it. So not only was it expensive, but I'm sure that the parts and work on them were expensive. So after the owner would get frustrated, I'm sure they come home and try to decide what they're going to do with it, and 99% of them, I'm sure, said, out to the dump it went. So not many of these things survived. And today, like I said, we're just showing you the basic stuff here. I will show you in my second video both the 33s and the 45s playing. But this is so unique, you'll probably not get to see one in your lifetime. This is the first one I've ever seen or heard of. It was a fluke that I stumbled on it, but very, very rare. So, stay tuned for the next video coming up. We'll show this thing in action. We'll plug it into an amplifier and we'll play both the 33s and the 45s dropping, and we'll show you how that works. Have a great day.